Hello, I'm Michelle. I'm Margarita's daughter. Margarita has asked me to come back another time to share with you some more stories about the world of mythology. In the past, I have told you some stories about people who lived in the old times and had adventures. This time, I would like to talk to you about some creatures, some animals that are fantasy, that are mythological, that are in the stories, and that supposedly were in the world at the time of the Greek myths and legends. I have a book here. It's called a Bestiary, and it is like a dictionary for mythical beasts. So it's not a dictionary, it's a bestiary. And I read this book when I was a small child, and this is how I learned what creatures were in the ancient world, in the ancient legends. So, this book is like a dictionary, so it goes alphabetically from A to Z with a different beast for each letter. The first beast is called an amphisbaena. And here is the picture. The amphisbaena is sort of like a dragon, but it does not breathe fire. The name amphisbaena means goes both directions. And it's called this because it has two heads, one at each end of its body. So it can walk that way, or it can walk that way with no problem. One thing, instead of walking, sometimes when the amphisbaena wants to go quickly, it has no wings. It cannot fly. So it puts one head inside the mouth of the other head and rolls like a wheel. And it can roll very quickly and chase the dog or chase a person to catch them and eat them. So that's the amphisbaena. Oh, one other thing which is special about the amphisbaena is because it has two heads, one can sleep and the other will be awake. So it is very difficult to sneak up to surprise an amphisbaena because one head is always awake. Makes it difficult to kill them. The second beast is called a basilisk. And here is the picture. A basilisk is what happens when a rooster, a boy chicken, when a rooster lays a spherical, a perfectly round egg. And then that egg is hatched by a toad. I believe also the egg has to be yolkless, which makes it even more difficult.
What's a yolk?
A yolk is the yellow center of the egg. So when a rooster lays a perfectly round egg with no yolk inside, and then a toad sits on the egg until the egg hatches, what will come out is a basilisk. This is very unusual, but when it does happen, the result is also very unusual.
Can we see that picture again?
Here is a picture.
So is that the toad in the side?
Yes, you can see the toad up here sitting on the egg. And what comes out is half chicken, half reptile. So it has a chicken's head, but the body of a snake, and it has wings and chicken claws. And it has a chicken beak, but it has the teeth of a snake. And a basilisk, if you even meet eyes, make eye contact with a basilisk, you will die. It's very deadly. Now, basilisk, the idea of a basilisk was made well known, was popularized in the book Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. In this book, Harry Potter has to fight a basilisk. But in Harry Potter, the basilisk is different from the classical version of a basilisk. In Harry Potter, it is just a big snake that if you look in its eye, you will die. It's not part chicken in Harry Potter. But, so maybe Harry Potter is right, maybe I am right, but this is, I learned when I was a child that, I learned from this book what a basilisk is. The next beast is called a catoblepas. A catoblepas, here's the picture. Catoblepas means looks down, looking down, like looking down. And a catoblepas also will kill you if you look in its eye, like a basilisk. But this isn't as much of a problem because the catoblepas head is so heavy that it always looks down. Its head is too heavy. So the catoblepas looks down at the ground and eats grass and plants. And the catoblepas is always hungry. So it eats everything. And this is a problem for farmers because wherever the catoblepas goes, it becomes a desert because the catoblepas eats everything that is on the ground. And when there's nothing left to eat, the poor catoblepas eats his own front legs because his head is hanging down, and then he chews on his legs because he is so hungry always. The next beast in the bestiary is for the letter D. And maybe they could not think of a better beast, but they chose the animal dog, D-O-G. Here's the picture. They say in this bestiary that the dog has many legends about it. As well as being a normal animal, it also can be a very mysterious animal. And in Ireland and Scotland, they have a legend that there is a black dog that haunts, like a ghost, haunts the moors, which are marshy areas in Scotland and Ireland. And that this dog, if you go out alone at night, this dog will follow you. And that people hear the footsteps of the dog and become very afraid. And that sometimes people see the dog and they think that it means death is coming. They're afraid they will die if they see this dog. And often they do. The legend has it that after you see this dog, you die very soon. It's a bad omen. It's a bad sign.
Was that like the Grimm in Harry Potter?
Yes, the Grimm would be an example of this legend about black dogs. It comes from Scotland and Ireland. The next animal for the letter E is called the Ecneus. Ecneus. Here's the picture. In this picture, you mainly see a boat, but the Ecneus you can see down here. The Ecneus is a little fish with a suction cup on the top of its head.
What's a suction cup?
A suction cup is like a plunger for, it looks like a plunger for clearing a toilet when it's blocked. It is a round rubber dome that when you press it against a surface, it clings. It holds on tight to that surface because of the air inside. So the Ecneus has one of those on its back. So it's swimming along like this, and it has a suction cup on the top of it. And this fish will swim along, and then when it sees a boat, it will go up to the boat and grab onto the boat. And it will attach. It'll just suck onto the boat. And then the magical thing is that when one of these fish, when an Ecneus fish grabs onto a boat, that boat cannot move anymore at all. It just stops dead in the water. Even though the Ecneus is not attached to an anchor or to a rock or anything, it's just a little fish. But if it touches a boat, that boat cannot move. So another reference to, or another word for the Ecneus is sailor's bane. Sailor's bane, which means the thing that gives sailors trouble. Because when this happens, the sailors cannot move, and they have to go swim underneath the boat, find the Ecneus, and knock it off of their boat before they can move again. Yeah. The next letter is F, and the beast is called the fire drake. Here's a picture. The fire drake is a kind of dragon. It actually is a dragon. It's just another word for a dragon. But fire drake is a term that's used for dragons in the north of Europe. And the fire drake features in the story of Beowulf, which is an epic story written in Old English. And in the story of Beowulf, the main hero has to fight a fire drake, a dragon. And he has many adventures, but the story of Beowulf is one place where you will see an example of the fire drake. The next beast for the letter G is the griffin. And here's the picture for the griffin. The griffin is a animal which is half lion, half eagle. And this is a combination of the king of beasts and the king of birds. Together makes the griffin. The griffin also shows up in Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a good place to learn about lots of mythical beasts. The griffin is from Europe mythology, and there are legends about magical properties that the griffin has. Feathers from the griffin and the claws of the griffin both have magical properties. Feathers could cure blindness, and the claw, if you turned the claw into a cup, then that cup would change color if poison was inside. So that was very useful. The beast for the letter H is called hippocampus. This is one of my favorite beasts, mainly because the picture makes the beast look so beautiful. Here's the picture. Isn't it beautiful? Hippocampus is a water creature. It's half horse, half fish. Sort of like a big seahorse. But the top half of the animal is horse and the bottom half is fish. And they eat seaweed at the bottom of the ocean, and they try to stay away from people if they can. They're not dangerous creatures. I like them a lot. They're probably my favorite. The next animal in here is called an ichneumon. And here's the picture. You can see the ichneumon up here in the little box. It looks sort of like a weasel or a squirrel, sort of. I know in Brazil you don't have squirrels, but that's sort of what it looks like. It also looks like a mongoose, if you want to look that one up and see a picture. Ichneumon is from Egypt, and they actually are a lot like mongooses, whatever you call multiple mongooses. So ichneumon supposedly lived in Egypt, and their mortal enemy were crocodiles and alligators and snakes. And the ichneumon is a mammal. It's got fur and it's small and warm-blooded, and you would think that an alligator would be able to eat an ichneumon for breakfast, that the ichneumon in a fight would never beat a alligator. But the ichneumon was very smart, and alligators sleep, and crocodiles sleep with their mouth open. I think it's because it cools them down or something. I'm not sure why, but crocodiles sleep with their mouth open. And when the crocodile was asleep, the ichneumon would go into the crocodile's mouth, crawl down the crocodile's throat, into the stomach, and bite the crocodile, and then run away. And that would cause the crocodile to bleed inside his stomach and die. And so the ichneumon could defeat the crocodile in Egypt. Mongooses are similar in that they fight snakes. And there is a famous story about a mongoose in India named Rikkitikkittavi. And this story is recorded in the Jungle Book. You can ask Margarita and she'll tell you more about the Jungle Book. But in the Jungle Book, it includes many stories from India, and one of them is the story of Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, and how Rikki-Tikki-Tavi protected a family from hooded, what's the name of that snake with the hood? Poisonous snakes that lived near the house. And this mongoose, Rikki-Tikki-Tavi, fought the snakes and killed them and protected the family from vipers or something like that. The next animal for the letter J is called a javelin snake. Here is the picture. You can see the snake. A javelin snake was able to So the javelin snake was unusual in a couple ways. Its tongue, instead of having 2 parts coming out, the tongue had 3. So a 3-forked tongue. Also, if you put out the eyes of a javelin snake, they would grow back. But the really special thing about the javelin snake is it would hide in a tree, and when people would walk underneath, the snake would become very straight like a javelin and jump and attack the person underneath like a javelin. A javelin is a spear. It's a long piece of wood with a sharp tip that could be thrown at someone. And the javelin snake especially likes wine, likes to drink wine. So it would wait for someone to come along underneath the tree who was carrying wine with him, and then the javelin snake would attack. So be careful if you're driving or walking in the woods and you're carrying wine, because you might be a victim of a javelin snake. The next beast for the letter K is called the kraken. The kraken is an ocean animal. It is an enormous octopus, so big that just one little tip of his tentacle could grab a ship and drag him under the water. Here's the picture. See how big the kraken is? See, there's the ship up here, and the whole body of the kraken is under the water. Kraken is in one of the movies of Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I believe it might be the second movie. Actually, no, I think it's the third movie. In the Pirates of the Caribbean, they take the legend of Davy Jones' locker, and they say that Davy Jones, sort of this man who is like a ghost who haunts the sea, that he has control of a beast, the kraken, and that Davy Jones can say, "Kraken, go attack this ship." And when the kraken attacks, no ship can survive. So the movie Pirates of the Caribbean 3, I believe it's Dead Man's Chest, takes the myth of the kraken and the myth of Davy Jones and puts them together. The next beast is called the Lucrocutta. And this Lucrocutta is from Africa. And here's the picture. The Lucrocutta is sort of like a hyena. It's like a big, vicious dog in Africa that is very fast, and it can catch animals and people and eat them. But something that's very unusual about the Lucrocutta is that it can call out in a human voice. It can make a sound as though it is a child lost, looking for help. And that will cause people to come out of their houses and come out into the desert, and where they can be eaten by the Lucrocutta. So be careful. The next beast, for the letter M, is called the manticore. Manticores are from Persia. And the word manticore in Persian, Old Persian, means man-eater. It eats men. It eats people. And it has the body of a lion and the head of a person, of a man, and the tail of a scorpion, poisonous tail. So here's the picture. There it is, the head, the body, the tail. And the manticore, even though he's got a very ferocious face and 3 rows of teeth, he has the voice of a little girl, like a high-pitched pipe, little pipey voice. And so even though he's very dangerous, very ferocious, he's a little bit, he probably is trying to make up for the fact that he's got such a silly voice. So he has to be really tough, or else no one will be afraid of him. But he is very dangerous, so you got to be careful. You shouldn't offend a manticore. The next beast is called a nycterax. Nycterax is a bird. Here's a picture. It looks sort of like a raven. The nycterax is the opposite, the enemy of the pelican. And in the myth, in the legend, the nycterax is a night bird. The pelican is a day bird. And the pelican is so in love with the sun that whenever the sun rises, a pelican, by the way, is sort of like a water bird, sort of like a stork pelican. I believe a pelican has a big pouch in its throat that can fill with fish. Anyway, the pelican is so in love with the sun that when the sun rises, the pelican goes and flies and tries to catch the sun until the sun sets. And while the pelican is away, the nycterax comes and kills the chicks of the pelican and then flies away. But when the sun sets, the pelican comes back and finds its chicks dead, and is so sad that the pelican pecks at its own chest until it bleeds. And as the blood falls on the chicks come back to life. So this happens every day in the story of the nycterax and the pelican. The next beast is called an ozaena. It's kind of a pretty word, ozaena, but it's not a pretty beast. An ozaena, here is the picture. An ozaena is also a ocean sea monster. The word ozaena means stink polyp. A polyp is a little octopus or squid. It's a squid mainly. Polyp is a squid, and ozaena means a stinky squid, stinky polyp, and they stink really badly. And usually they're small, and you'd find them in your fishing net or something and be like, here's a stinky squid, I'm throwing it away. But sometimes they got really big, and then they would come and they would attack boats or attack the shoreline or people swimming. So you had to be careful about the Ozaena when they got big. There are some real squids that are huge, but they don't attack people. So it's not so bad as an Ozaena. Also, real squids don't stink as badly as an Ozaena, supposedly. The next beast begins with the letter P, and it's a phoenix. Here's a picture. Phoenix is a very beautiful bird that's connected to fire. Phoenix, there's lots of legends about the phoenix, but phoenix is a wise bird that lives a very long time, and everyone agrees that when the phoenix is old and ready to die, it builds a nest of sweet-smelling herbs and woods, and as the sun rises, or maybe as the sun sets, but something like that, whether either the sun is rising or setting, the phoenix starts to sing to the sun and starts to cry, and then it bursts into fire. The whole nest catches on fire, and it burns and burns and burns until there's nothing but ashes left. And in the ashes is an egg of the next phoenix. Now, some people think that there's only one phoenix, and it comes back in the egg. It's the same phoenix. So really the phoenix lives forever. But other people think that the egg is the child of the phoenix, and it's just the next phoenix that's going to be born. Some people say that there is only one phoenix in the whole world. Others think it's just a kind of animal. There are multiple. One place I heard about the phoenix was in E. Nesbit's book, The Phoenix and the Carpet. And in that story, some children in London, England, some children in England find an egg, and they accidentally drop it in their fire, and when they put it in the fire, it hatches, and out comes the phoenix. And the phoenix can talk, and it is very wise, but it's also very proud, and they go on many adventures together. They also have a magic carpet at the same time from Persia, a magic Persian carpet that can take them anywhere. So it's a very fun story. I recommend you look it up and read it. The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit. One of my favorite books. One thing that happens in that book is the phoenix wants to know if people have forgotten about him yet, or if he is still worshipped the way he was when he was in the old, earlier times. And the children are embarrassed because no one worships a phoenix now, but they take the phoenix to a fire truck company, a company that sends fire trucks out to put out fires. And this company is called the Phoenix Fire Company or something like that. And so they take the phoenix there, and the phoenix believes that this is a temple, and all of the people who work there are priests to his glory, to his honor, the phoenix's honor. And so the phoenix walks in all proudly and demands that they give him like a special ceremony in their office. And so he goes in and he makes a nest on their like their coffee table, and all of the people who work at the fire company come in and say some nice words and are very confused. And after the phoenix leaves, they all go back to work, and they feel like they don't know what just happened. They don't understand. But it's just too weird. So they just go back to work, and the phoenix goes on with his life, feeling that all is well in England. People still honor him there. It's very funny. The next letter is Q, and the creature is called the questing beast. Here's a picture. I don't know if this beast really looked like this. Supposedly the beast had the body of a leopard and the head of a snake. And where you hear about this beast is in Arthurian legend, the legends of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Apparently this beast, this beast is famous because one of the knights, Pellinore, devoted his whole life to finding this beast, and so it became his quest. It was his mission to find this beast, and he hunted this beast, the quest beast, his whole life, and he never caught it. But that's where you hear about this particular beast. Oh, it also had the back legs of a lion. So the body of a leopard, the back legs of a lion, and the head of a snake. The next creature, R, the letter R, is called the Roc. And even though it's called the Roc, it's spelled R-O-C, not R-O-C-K. And it is an enormous, big eagle, a large, large eagle from Madagascar, the island off the coast of Africa. Here's a picture. This eagle in this picture is holding an elephant. That gives you an idea of how big this eagle is. So this eagle would come and fly in and raid the villages in Madagascar and Africa and India, in that area. But other than being enormous, that was the only thing that was magical about this creature. The next creature, the letter S, is the Sphinx. The Sphinx, here's a picture of the Sphinx. The Sphinx is a lion with the head of a woman, or a man, usually a woman. And you can see here, the picture is of the Sphinx, the statue of the Sphinx that is in Egypt. And up here you can see a real Sphinx sitting on a rock. And the Sphinx is, they made big statues of them in Egypt, but there is a very famous legend about the Sphinx in Greek mythology. In Greek mythology, the Sphinx was a very wise, very tricky, cunning creature that would sit on the road, and when a traveler would come, the Sphinx would not let the traveler pass unless the traveler answered a riddle. And if the traveler got it wrong, then the Sphinx would kill the traveler. And for a long time, no one could answer the riddle. And here is the riddle of the Sphinx. What goes on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet, okay, hold on, start over. This is the riddle of the Sphinx. What goes about on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? For a long time, no one could answer this question. But a Greek hero came named Perseus, I believe it was Perseus, who had to pass the Sphinx, and so he answered correctly. The creature that goes about on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening is man, who crawls on 4 limbs in childhood, walks on 2 legs in the middle of his life, and uses a cane, 2 legs and a cane, when he is old. And that was the correct answer. And so the Sphinx, I believe the legend is the Sphinx like just evaporated or something like that, disappeared, fell apart, but he let Perseus pass by. I think it was Perseus. Better check and make sure that it was Perseus. And if not, we'll have to, we'll let you know who it really is, who it really was. That story is the story of the hero and the Sphinx is part of a bigger story of adventures that hero had. And I'd like to tell you those stories later, but I'll have to go and check, make sure who the hero was in that story first. The next creature is the Triton. Here is a picture. The Triton looks like a mermaid, a merman, and I guess they are sort of similar. It's a man with the bottom half of a fish. But the legends about mermaids and tritons are separate. You may have heard the word Triton before. Triton also means a certain kind of spear that mer people tend to have. It's a long spear with 3 prongs at the end. Poseidon has a Triton. So it's a 3-pronged spear. Sort of looks like a pitchfork, but it's a spear. So the Tritons carried Tritons, and they were warlike warriors, sea men. The king, you may have heard in some legends, the king of the seas was named Triton. In the Disney movie, The Little Mermaid, Ariel's father is named Triton, and he also carries a Triton. So the word Triton is connected to mer people, sea people, half man, half fish. The next letter is U, and the beast is the unicorn. You may know of unicorns. They are horses with 1 horn coming out of their forehead. But unicorn really just means 1 horn. That's what the word means, unicorn. So there are legends of creatures called unicorns which aren't horses at all. And you see different kinds of unicorns in different places around the world. In China and Japan and Persia, they had 3 different kinds of unicorns there. One is called the kirin. That looks like a dragon. This is a Japanese. Japanese and Chinese, they have these dragons, you know, the Chinese dragons, they're very long and snake-like. And if it has a horn coming out of the front of its head, it's actually a kirin, and it's a kind of unicorn. They can also look horse-like, sort of like a scaly horse with a horn and a mane, sort of like a cross between a dragon and a horse. This is from the Asian tradition. There's also, in Persia, a vicious bunny rabbit, yellow, a yellow rabbit which can eat people, and it has a horn coming out of its head too. So Anyway, here's a picture of a couple different kinds. You can see different kinds of unicorns in this picture. You can even see the bunny. Mirage was the name of the bunny, Mirage. And I think the big one is a Carcadon. Anyway. Letter V, vegetable lamb. I have never heard about this one outside of this book, the vegetable lamb, but I think it's a really cool idea. The vegetable lamb, supposedly, grew on a plant, and it was a lot like a bean plant, and it would get these pods that would form, and when the vegetable lamb was ripe, the pod would open up, and inside would be a little sheep. And the little sheep would sort of come out and eat grass and stuff, and those little sheep, if you could catch them and take their wool, it was very fine, very good wool. So they were valuable, the vegetable lamb. But here is a picture. They're really cute. W, the wyvern. The wyvern is another kind of dragon. The wyvern is like a dragon. The name means viper. Viper, a poisonous snake. And the head is shaped, pointy, like a viper, to strike and put poison, bite, poisonous bite. They have wings, and they have a barbed tail. They have a tail with a hook on the side, like a fish hook on their tail. And medieval knights, when they would fight dragons, it was this kind of dragon, the wyvern. Another thing that's different from this kind of dragon and other kinds, the wyvern had only 2 legs, whereas other dragons have 4 legs. This one had only 2, and wings. X, Xanthus. Xanthus, oh wait, did I show you the picture? Here's the wyvern. See, the knight is fighting the wyvern, and you can see his barbed tail in the picture. Okay. Xanthus. Xanthus were the horses that were owned by King Diomedes, by King Diomedes in the story of the labors of Hercules. One of the labors of Hercules was to steal the Xanthus, the horses, the man-eating horses, owned by King Diomedes. And you can see a picture here of Hercules fighting the Xanthus to capture them and bring them back. You can tell it's Hercules because he's wearing the coat made out of the skin of the lion that he had to kill in his first labor. The lion with the skin that could not be cut by anything. So he had to capture these mares, these horses, the Xanthus. And he actually, legend has it that the king was not very helpful, who owned King Diomedes, and so the horses ended up attacking the king. And when the king tried to stop Hercules, the horses attacked the king and ate him right there. And Hercules took the horses away. The next beast for the letter Y is called the Yale. The Yale was is from India, and they were bred by priests to guard sacred temples. And Yale had 2 horns coming out of its head, and it could use those horns to fight anyone who would attack the temple. Okay, so the Yale had the horns, and it would fight people who would come to raid the temples. It also had tusks, curved tusks, that it could also use. So here's the picture of the Yale. You can see the temple in the background that it is defending. The last letter, Z. The last beast, Xiphus. Let me check, make sure it's Xiphus, not Xiphius. Xiphius. Xiphius is also called a water owl. A water owl. The Xiphius, like the kraken, is a sea monster, and it's very large, much larger than a whale. And it had a face sort of like an owl. Big eyes, pointy face down towards a beak-like mouth. So it had a pointy face that went down to a sharp mouth that was sort of like a beak, like the beak of an owl. And whenever this creature, the Xiphius, saw a ship on the surface of the water above, it could rise up and land on top of the ship and bring the ship down. Here's a picture. See how big that Xiphius's head is? And you can see in the little box the comparison of the Xiphius and the whale. You can see how big it is. The Xiphius was said to have no eyelids, so his eyes were always open. And the sailors, when their ship was attacked by the Xiphius, the last thing they would see is the lidless eyes of the Xiphius. Very scary creature. So that's A through Z, 26 beasts for you, and some of the stories that go with these beasts. You can see a lot of these creatures in the Harry Potter series and in other modern movies and stories like Pirates of the Caribbean and like The Phoenix and the Carpet. So I encourage you to keep learning about these creatures and noticing them in the stories. And they make the world a much more interesting place to know about these creatures. I will see you next time, and we'll talk about maybe some of the stories that have these creatures in them and the heroes that interacted with them. See you next time.